Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Franchise to Success with our super awesome coach, Dan Olsen. How are you doing, Dan?
Wow, you're always so awesome and kind to me, and I appreciate always the opportunity to be here with you, Marjorie.
Oh, thank you. And we truly appreciate learning more about you and your experience in just mastering all of these franchises. So, take us a little bit through the process of opening a franchise because people are really interested about getting started into it. So, how does the process look like? I know that at the beginning, there's a phone call that you need to do with the franchise source. Tell us more about that.
Okay, so we over the years, there's I think you can just qualify and put everything into our four-step process. When you're on the outside looking in and trying to figure out whether this is the right franchise for you, we usually define four steps. Now, there's a lot of steps in between there, but four major check things we want to check off the list, if you would, before you qualify for that franchise or before you're satisfied to wanting to move forward. So the first one on that list is kind of that getting to know you call. It's the call or the time where you have a chance to talk with that representative of that franchise company. Usually it won't be the CEO because they're busy. They're trying to take care of franchisees. They're usually reserved for later on if it's a larger company. If it's a young company, then it might be the CEO.
Cool.
But most likely it's going to be someone that's not necessarily an officer of the company. They usually have a franchise development advisor or franchise development team member who takes those initial calls. So the in pretty much every case, there's a lead generation process that goes. It might be through LinkedIn or through Facebook that you've clicked on, and I'd like to get some information about that franchise, or maybe it's even looking into an entrepreneur magazine and calling the number or whatever it is, and you probably get a voicemail and you leave your number and then they'll call you back. But what's really happening right now is a lot of funnels that are happening where you click on something and this looks interesting. You're googling tax franchise or how to open a tax business or whatever you're looking for. It pops up, and all of a sudden there's a list of franchises to click on. Usually because they've put their names up there very high organically or they've paid for that right to be there. And so you click on it, and up comes the site. And more of the sophisticated franchisors now, what they're doing is they're using sales funnels. So you click on it, and then there is a funnel. In other words, there's usually a little bit of information. There's maybe a quick video about how it works, and you go through that funnel. And if you like what you see at the end, you click, say, "Yeah, I'd love to take the next step and see what this looks like." So that's step number one, where now you're lining yourself up with an appointment with that franchise advisor to see if this is the right thing for you. And so during that call, typically what they're going to do is they're going to be asking you questions about you and your background and how you got there and what you're thinking of doing and maybe what you'd like to accomplish, and maybe even a little bit more information about how you would fund a franchise like this might come up. But typically they're going to be asking you the questions. So you need to be prepared to answer some of the questions, because you have already at this point probably already watched a video or you've looked at some information, so you know a little bit about it and you're interested enough. So now they want to start checking you out a little bit.
Oh, wow.
And then once you get through with their questions, then you're going to have your questions. And sometimes if you have some deal killer questions, I recommend asking those right up the front. Say, "Hey, before you start talking to me about my background and what I'd like to accomplish, can you answer this for me?" And some of those more important questions are, how many franchisees are out there, and how are they doing? How are they succeeding? How is the support going? But probably the most important question is, how's the money made? Are we making money here? Because that's why you're buying it, is to make money. And of course, the other big question is, what is the investment? So two very, very important questions up front, if you don't already know the answers to that, is what's the total investment? How much do I need to come out of pocket? Do you have financing sources for me? And also, what type of revenues are your franchisees seeing at this point? And that can be, of course, discussed if they have what we've called that item 19 in in the franchise disclosure document. So those are very important questions to ask up front. So the goal of that first meeting that I've been taught many years ago is just to see if both parties want to continue on to the next step. So you're going to be discussing back and forth the opportunities of the franchise. Sometimes it may be that call, sometimes is divided up into 2 different calls or a Zoom meeting. What we like to do sometimes is just do the interview process, make sure that it's the right thing up front. And then if it's a good conversation, they're liking what they're hearing, you as the candidate, then we take to the next step. And usually that's where we get into a Zoom meeting. We meet each other through Zoom, and then we talk through maybe more detailed on some of the numbers and how those work. And as much as we can, pending the franchise disclosure document, of course, and then answer a few more questions, and then ask them, is this something you'd like to continue down the road on? And if it's yes, then okay, let's do it. That's step number 1, getting through that process. Step number 2 is in this 4-step process is now getting some of the legal and validation out of the way. And by the legal, that means that they must send you the franchise disclosure document. And usually that's done electronically now. So it's can be overwhelming. It can be 150 to 250 pages long. Oh, wow. And that's probably a whole nother session on what to look at in the franchise disclosure document, on how to analyze that and what to look for, because that's very, very important, because that is the heart of the franchise. You cannot become a franchise without having the franchise disclosure document. So usually after that first step, they send you the franchise disclosure document to start to review. So the second step involves what we call validation and the franchise disclosure review. So then we start into reviewing that. They're going to question, oh, the royalty says it's this much, or you guys, it says in here that you don't do much training on this topic. I mean, it reveals all that. It has to be disclosed. So that allows you to question what you've just received back to the franchisor and kind of put them on the spot now. They've got to give you good answers, otherwise you're not going to move forward. And then at that point, usually other franchisees are introduced to meet the team, meet the franchisees. There's usually calls or Zoom meetings set up where you can meet others that are in the system online, or talk to them on the phone, or talk to some of the officers of the company through a Zoom meeting. So you get to meet them a little bit before. So then if you like that through your second step, then usually, and everybody likes each other, at that point, they offer the third step, which is our discovery day. Come to a discovery day. So they come to the discovery day. If they come to that third step, and that's a whole nother topic as well that we've already covered as far as what happens in the discovery day, what you want to look for. But that's where you're going to actually go to their corporate locations. Typically, sometimes they might hold it remotely at a franchise location, so it's a little bit closer to you, so you don't have to go as far. We've done that too. But that's where you meet everybody and go through the process that they've set up and see if it's for you, and get all your detailed questions answered. Then that's the third step. Then on the fourth step is going through the agreement. So now you got to sign the agreement if you're going to become a franchisee. And some people choose to take that agreement to an attorney. Some people don't, because it's already been worked out usually. And it would cost probably $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for an attorney to look it over anyway. So if it's already been documented and you're satisfied by reading through the agreement and you're okay with it, that's when the fourth step happens, is negotiate what's in that agreement. And sometimes the franchisor will make a few concessions, especially if they're a younger franchise company. If they're an older franchise company, more established, they're not going to. They're just going to say, here you go, take it or leave it. If you want the business and you want to make money and build have that freedom, sign the agreement. If you don't, then that's fine. Next. That's sometimes their attitude, because there's so many people vying for that particular franchise. But if it's a younger one, then typically that fourth step, you get a chance to negotiate some of the terms of that. But not necessarily do they change it in the body of the agreement. Sometimes they do, but most of them, what we do now is we just put an addendum or an attachment to that agreement and just pinpoint the bullet points on what we want changed. And that's a valid legal agreement to do that. It makes it much simpler. So once you've negotiated that, step 4, now you're ready to sign your document and turn over your funds. and so you write your check, or you send your wire or ACH transfer, or maybe the franchisor takes crypto or whatever they do to receive their initial funds. They'll define that for you. You send in your funds as you sign the agreement. They sign the agreement, send it back to you, and you're in business. And now you get the fun really begins to start opening your location.
That's amazing. So tell us, how many months do each of those parts of the process would take?
So just to get to the point where you sign the dotted line to become a franchisee and go through that qualification process, the minimum amount of time it can take is about 15 days. So let's say that, Marjorie, you're ready to go, and we have, you love this particular franchise and you're excited about it, you're ready. So we take you through those 4 steps. The time is triggered when we send you, and we can do it electronically, when we provide to you the franchise disclosure document. So when we provide that to you, day 1, there are 14 more days that have to pass before you can actually sign the dotted line as a franchisee. So on day 15, we always give that extra day. So we make sure we comply with that federal law. That 14-day period has to pass. So day 15 or 16 is as soon as you could do anything to turn over any money, sign any agreement. It just gives you that gives you the time to make sure you're making the right decision. But typically what happens is sometimes discovery days are scheduled 3 weeks out, or this schedule to meet the team is scheduled 2 weeks out. So they're not necessarily, oh, you want to meet the team? Okay, let's get on with them this afternoon. I mean, this is a pretty serious thing, not only for you, but for them. So it usually takes some time to set all those up. But so most of the time we see about a 30-day due diligence process for you to analyze the franchise, and them, of course, to analyze you, but mostly you analyzing them, make sure it's the right fit for you. It takes usually 30 days, 45 days, sometimes as long as 60 days. And if somebody really is slowing down the process, really wants to be thorough, it might take 90 days. So we see all that time frame in there. Most of the time, what I'm seeing is right around that 45-day mark to get through that process of qualifying and signing on the dotted line. A master franchise is usually a little bit different, although I've seen them done in 20 days.
Oh, wow.
Typically, those are a little bit longer. Those are more 45, 60, 75 days to get through that process, because it's usually a little bit bigger investment. And many times it's contingent, or they have to wait to be able to tap into their funds anyway when they're getting in through a 401k, that they're pulling those funds out of there, or how, it depends on how they're raising their funds. But that's about how long it takes typically.
But it's truly impressive how it doesn't take as long as like getting a house, because I feel like for getting a house, like all the documentation and all the signing and all the many different evaluations that have to be done on a house, they take even longer now. So I feel like it's even way easier to get a franchise at this point, and much more profitable, I believe.
Well, you're exactly right. I had a friend of mine, he said, when you're starting to look at investments, and so of course we want to invest in real estate, any opportunity we can, but the market, the way it's going right now, it's tough. And I was talking to one of our franchisees with one of the companies just last week, and they're a wonderful couple, probably in their 40s, I would say, or early 40s, in that range. They just got married, and they have one house, but they're looking to buy a house together, start their life together. They said they've put in over 35 offers on a home, and sometimes, well, that wasn't 30. They put in about 30 offers, and even offering as much as $35,000 more than the asking price. Oh, wow. And never did they had their offer taken, even though they can offer cash. So it's been very difficult. So we had one of our franchise advisors the other day looking at that market. But I'm not saying give up on it. I'm saying keep going with real estate as much as you can, but it's a little more difficult. So he actually made a funny video about this. And he says, okay, if you're looking for an investment, okay, so real estate, do I want to be in with the 100 other people that are putting that offer in and get it rejected? So there's nothing available? And he made a funny, I have to look at the video again, but it was a really funny video about how he did it. And he kind of looks up and he puzzles, do I want to look at offering on a house And then he said, and the next thing in the next video is there's not enough homes available. The supply is just not out there. I'm going to drive myself crazy trying to find something. Oh, here's a solution. And he kind of, all of a sudden the light goes on in his head. I'll get a franchise, same amount of money down. But it only takes, I don't have to go through that headache, and I can just buy something that's fresh, clean, that has a proven system, have a high success rate, and have a higher return. And that's kind of his video message. And so that's kind of what we're getting out there, is that message that there's a lot more franchises available out there than real estate at this point.
Oh yeah, and it's a perfect timing, I believe, for investing on it, because you're not gonna have as much competition as you would have when buying a house itself. So that's amazing. And just going back to the disclosure document, though, that you mentioned as a part of the process for getting a franchise, you said that there are a couple of things that we could negotiate if it's a newer franchise. So what are some of those things that could be negotiated in this addendum?
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. And I'll give you some of the things that I've done over the years. But in the franchise disclosure document, there's usually two different types, and there could be more than two, but the two main types are what we have are one for the single unit and multiple unit owners. Those are the ones opening the locations. So the single unit owners have that type of franchise documentation that shows what their total investment is, what the royalties look like, the training looks like, et cetera. The law now requires us on a master franchise, or the proper term is an area representation or area representative franchise, where you own the master franchise or region of a territory. It might be the state of Colorado, it might be Dallas, Fort Worth, or whatever it is. As you own that franchise, now you have the rights to that territory. And so there's a second franchise disclosure document for that. And so you have to go through that. And on each of those franchise documents, there's two main parts of it. There's like several different exhibits and lots of different things. They have to disclose their financials to you. They have to do all these things for you. But two main parts to that is the franchise disclosure document. And that's 23 different parts, items that you look through and you analyze and see if those are okay for you. So that's the disclosure about the franchise itself. The second main part to that is included in the franchise disclosure document, has to be included, is the agreement that you would sign. So if you became a franchisee, you sign that agreement. That's the piece that I always go to, because I want to look at what's in the agreement that I'm going to be obligated to do. And so there's a lot of different things you can go through there. For example, there's a lot of little things that can add up, like could be social media fees, it could be technology fees. There's going to be, $299 a month for this and $400 a month for this and other different things that are in there. And now these are necessary these days to run a franchise. You do want that technology, or you do want some social media, and you do want some other things that are going to be offered in there. But sometimes we can negotiate that in the franchise. For example, it may say, you got to start paying your technology fees day one, or you have to start paying this fee day one, or this fee day one. So a lot of times we'll negotiate that in there, that you don't have to start paying until you're actually a week or two before you open your doors. So you can save that few $100s up front. Right. And so there's a lot of different things like that we can help negotiate and save you some time and money.
That's true. And what are some of the tips that you could give people that are looking into the franchise? Which one is, in your opinion, one of the hardest parts of the whole process of getting a franchise?
The hardest part I think, is understanding what you're signing in the agreement. So unless the franchise company advisor does a really good job of taking you through what's in the franchise disclosure document and what's in the agreement, what you're signing, what you're obligated to, and you understand that, and a good advisor will do that, and that's exactly what we do with our team members, is train them how to do that. And so as you go through that with that person, that could save you having to take it to an attorney and spending that several $1,000s to have them look at it and come back and make all these changes, which may or may not be adopted anyway. And so that you can cut through a lot of that and streamline that process by understanding what's in that agreement, by getting some help with that, whether it's through the franchise advisor themselves or through legal counsel. And we would never tell anybody not to get legal counsel if that's what they wanted to do. But that's an important part of being ready to go on the franchise, understanding what you're signing.
That's right. And I feel like it is super important to have an advisor, whether you're going to be having your own lawyer or not.
Right.
It's always a good idea to have an advisor because the advisor has already experienced the process of a franchise so many times that he can probably enlighten you on those tiny little pieces that you are missing. Thank you so much, Dan. And we're so happy to have you as our coach,
Oh,
our advisor,
I'm
our
happy to
main
be
mentor.
here. I'm so happy to be with you as well. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all our audience for listening to this episode. And stay tuned for our next episode. For all of you people that are super into sports, also sports can be related to franchises, and you're going to see how. Thank you so much.